What if I told you that one of the most beautiful love songs ever written wasn't actually written for a lover at all? And that Elvis Presley, despite giving us one of the most iconic performances of this song, had absolutely nothing to do with its creation. Today, we're uncovering the shocking true story behind Unchained Melody, a tale of prison walls, Hollywood dreams, and a song that almost never happened. Stick around, because this story will completely change how you hear this timeless classic. Welcome back to The Origin of the Letter, where we dig deep into the untold stories behind music history's greatest mysteries. I'm Nilka, and if you love discovering the real stories behind iconic songs, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood song origins in music history. Unchained Melody has been covered by hundreds of artists, from Elvis to the Righteous Brothers to Ghost's Patrick Swayze. But the real story of how this masterpiece came to be is far more fascinating than any Hollywood romance. Let's clear something up right away. Elvis Presley did not write Unchained Melody. This is one of music history's most persistent myths. Elvis's 1977 performance of the song, filmed just months before his death, was so emotionally powerful that many people assume he must have written it. But the truth is far more complex and interesting. The real story begins in 1955 in the most unlikely of places, a men's prison. And it involves two men whose names you probably don't know, but whose creation would touch millions of hearts for generations to come. So let's travel back to where it all really began. The year is 1955. Hollywood producer Hal Bartlett is working on a film called Unchained, a groundbreaking movie about prison reform. The film was revolutionary for its time, focusing on a minimum security prison where inmates could literally walk away, but chose to stay and rehabilitate. Bartlett needed a theme song that would capture the emotional core of his film, the idea of physical freedom versus emotional bondage. He approached composer Alex North, already known for his work on A Streetcar Named Desire and Death of a Salesman. But here's where the story gets interesting. North didn't want to write just another prison song. He was fascinated by the psychological concept the film explored, how someone could be physically unchained but emotionally imprisoned by longing and separation. North spent weeks visiting actual prisons, talking to inmates about their deepest fears and desires. What he discovered wasn't what you might expect. The prisoners didn't talk much about freedom in the legal sense. They talked about the people they missed, wives, girlfriends, children they couldn't hold. One conversation particularly stuck with North. An inmate told him, "The chains aren't around my ankles, Doc. They're around my heart." This single phrase would become the emotional foundation for what was to come. North knew he had his musical concept, but he needed the perfect lyricist. He turned to Hy Zarrett, a seasoned songwriter who had worked on everything from advertising jingles to Broadway shows. But Zarrett initially wasn't interested. "Write a song about prison?" Zarrett reportedly said. "That's not exactly hit material, Alex." But North persisted, explaining his vision. This wasn't a song about prison. It was a song about universal human longing. Zarrett agreed to read the script. What he found wasn't a typical prison movie, but a deeply emotional story about what it means to be truly free. The main character could leave physically, but was bound by his love for his wife and his fear of disappointing her. This gave Zarrett his angle. He wouldn't write about physical chains or prison walls. He would write about the chains of love, longing, and time itself. The lyrics would speak to anyone who had ever been separated from someone they loved, whether by distance, death, or circumstance. The writing process was intensely personal for Zarrett. He drew from his own experience of being separated from his wife during World War II when he served overseas and wondered if he'd ever see her again. When North and Zarrett came together to create the final song, something magical happened. North had composed a melody that seemed to stretch time itself, long, flowing phrases that felt like sighs made into music. Zaret's words perfectly matched this emotional landscape. The genius of their collaboration was in what they didn't say as much as what they did. The song never mentions prison, bars, or crime. Instead, it speaks in universal terms about time, longing, and the hunger of the human heart. But here's something most people don't know. The original version was almost completely different. North's first melody was much more upbeat, almost jazzy. It was Zaret who convinced him to slow it down, to make it more contemplative. "This isn't a song you dance to," Zaret told North. "This is a song you feel in your chest when you're alone at night missing someone." That conversation changed everything, creating the haunting, timeless quality we know today. The recording session for the film was intimate, just a small orchestra and vocalist Todd Duncan, the original Porgy from Porgy and Bess. Duncan's classical training brought an operatic quality to the performance that elevated the song beyond typical movie themes. When Unchained was released in 1955, the film received modest attention, but the song began taking on a life of its own. Radio DJs started playing the theme music independently of the movie, and something unprecedented happened. People began requesting a song they'd heard in a prison movie as wedding music. This wasn't what North and Zaret had planned. They'd written a song about separation and longing, but audiences heard something else. A song about enduring love that transcends physical boundaries. The first major cover came from Les Baxter in 1955, followed by Al Hibbler's version that reached number 3 on the charts. But each artist brought their own interpretation. What had started as a prison movie theme was becoming a standard, one of those rare songs that seemed to mean something different to everyone who heard it. The Righteous Brothers' 1965 version took the song to another level entirely. Their soaring emotional delivery emphasized the song's romantic potential, and suddenly Unchained Melody became the definitive love song for a generation. But perhaps the most poignant performance came from Elvis Presley in 1977. Sitting at his piano, months before his death, Elvis sang it with such raw vulnerability that many consider it his finest vocal performance. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew the song's origin. Here was a man who had become imprisoned by his own fame, singing about longing for freedom. What makes Unchained Melody so enduring isn't just its beautiful melody or romantic associations. It's the way North and Zaret captured something universal about the human condition. We're all, in some way, unchained but not free. The song works whether you're missing someone across the world or across the room, whether you've lost someone to death or distance. It speaks to that part of us that feels bound by circumstances beyond our control. Music psychologists have studied why certain songs become timeless, and Unchained Melody hits several key elements. It has a memorable, singable melody, lyrics that are specific enough to be meaningful but universal enough for personal interpretation, and an emotional arc that builds to a satisfying resolution. But perhaps most importantly, it captures time itself in musical form. The long, sustained notes mirror the way time feels when you're separated from someone you love. Stretched, endless, almost painful in its passage. North and Zaret created more than a song. They created an emotional experience that resonates across cultures, generations, and circumstances. From prison walls to wedding altars, from movie theaters to concert halls, Unchained Melody continues to unlock the deepest chambers of the human heart. Today, Unchained Melody stands as one of the most covered songs in music history, with over 1,500 recorded versions. It's been featured in countless movies, sung at millions of weddings, and has provided comfort to those experiencing every form of separation imaginable. Alex North, who died in 1991, and Hi Zaret, who passed in 2007, created something that transcended their original vision. What began as a theme for a forgotten prison movie became a universal anthem of longing and love. The next time you hear Unchained Melody, remember, you're not just listening to a love song. You're experiencing the musical embodiment of one of humanity's most profound emotions, the bittersweet ache of loving someone beyond the reach of time and space. And perhaps that is the greatest testament to North and Zaret's genius. They wrote a song about chains that ultimately freed us all to feel more deeply. That's the true story behind Unchained Melody. Proof that the most powerful art often comes from the most unexpected places. What's a song that you discovered had a completely different origin than you thought? Share your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed uncovering this musical mystery, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories behind the songs that shape our lives. Until next time, keep listening between the lines.